Let's continue with our calculator project. So far we've had two features, the addition and subtraction, with an option of typing 10 to exit completely the application. And so now we would like to add, let's say, multiplication and then division, and then we'll see if we have time to add some more other features. So let's think about how we did addition. Just as a review, so we simply called the function addition. Let's go to that function. So as you can see, it was self-contained, which means the requirements for the inputs and the requirement for the output, including printing the output, were all done within the function addition. Subtraction, on the other hand, we've played a little bit differently with it, where when we called subtraction, unlike addition, which we simply called it, this time we assigned it to a variable we called local variable called result that was defined in main. The reason for that, or the difference between it and addition, is because we want subtraction to actually return that result back to main, where this result will be equal to the result right here. So within the function subtraction, we will ask the user to enter number 1, number 2. We will subtract them from each other, round it up, and then we will return that result. Unlike addition, we're not printing the result here. We will be printing it afterwards, after we've called the function subtraction. And that's when we were able to simply print the result here in main. So there are two different styles. I'm just doing this so you can see what are the possibilities. So for multiplication, on the other hand, I'm going to make it slightly different, where we're going to have it where it takes two parameters, which is the two numbers you want to multiply with each other, and then it will return the result. So let's go ahead and design the multiplication, which will be different in the way we've designed addition and subtraction. So I want multiplication, for our case, to accept two arguments, which will be your parameter list, which will have two items in it, and then it will return the actual result of multiplying these arguments together. So the definition of multiply would look like this. Let's call it multiplication as an operation. And it will take two numbers. And we're going to say num1, num2. So it is expected that it will have, and this is what we call the parameter list. Okay, so in that list, we'll have two arguments. And what it will do, it will simply return num1 times num2. Could we have done this style for the other, like the addition and subtraction? Absolutely. It's just a different style. So as you can see, the signatures of these functions are totally different. For example, this one does not have any arguments, and it doesn't return anything. This one, on the other hand, does not have any arguments, but it does return. This one, finally, accepts two arguments, and that's the parameter list, and it will return the product of the two. So how do we use it? That means you have to supply it with num1, num2. It is not self-contained. As you can see here, it's not asking the user to enter a value for num1 and num2. You're going to have to do this before you call the function multiplication. So where are we going to do that? We're going to do it right here. Do you see here where I have these nested if statements? And this is the reason why we tab properly, hopefully, so you can see which else belongs to which if statement. So within this else here, I'm going to write another if statement right here. If, and we're going to do the option. So for multiplication, we're going to assign it 3. Now I haven't done that yet, and we're going to do something here. So let me just write pass for now, which means do nothing. However, I am going to write an else here. And under this else, all of this here, we're going to tab it one space. So this now is nested within this if statement. Now in this pass, I'm going to be removing it as soon as I add an option under menu where we're going to have to print. So 3 has to exist here to lead the user into understanding there is an option 3 for multiplication. Okay, so we've updated or upgraded the menu list. Now let's go back to here. Instead of pass, and the only reason I did pass, so I don't get an error while I'm trying to code here. So I'm going to remove pass now. And you notice now that I've taken it out, I've got a little red squiggly line that would have been an error if I try to run this. That's the only reason I added there, which pass, remember, is no operation. So now what do I need to do if we pick, if option is 3? Well, based on the signature of the function multiply, again, you're going to have to supply it with values for num1 and num2 for it to work. Since it in itself is not self-contained or does not have any code in there that asks the user or assign values to num1 and num2. So let's do it here then. So let's call it n1 if you want. They don't have to have the same name, but it's usually a good idea. And let's call this one float. And we're going to ask the user here with an input function. And the reason again for float, folks, is to typecast. Whatever string we bring from the keyboard, make it a float and store it in n1. Enter a number. And notice here we're asking for these numbers n1 and n2 in main. And we're going to do the same thing, float, and then input, enter another number. Okay. All right, so how about the result? Well, we could say the result equals, now you call the function. Which one? Multiplication. So, but you're going to have to now supply it with n1 and n2. So this is very important because n1, whatever value it has, will be assigned to num1. n2 will be assigned to num2. In other words, num1 and num2 will have the same values as n1 and n2. And those two values will be multiplied with each other and they will be returned. So when the function finishes, it returns that value. So this is why we need a variable to handle it. Okay? Or you can, it doesn't have to be called a result. You can call it the product. Okay? Product equals the multiplication of n1, n2. Okay, can we print? Now, since we have the result of the multiplication, and then we could say equals, and then we're going to put product now as the actual variable that has the value. Now let's go ahead and test it out. So let's go ahead and run this program, and notice now we have a menu. Within that menu, notice I have an updated line called multiplication. I am going to pick 3. And notice it's going to ask me for a number. So I'm going to take 1.6 and I'm going to multiply it by 5.1. Okay? And there you have it. So the result of the multiplication is 8.16. And let's go ahead and pick 10 now to exit. So for our next lesson, we're going to do something similar, but with division. And with division, I'm going to introduce a couple things. We're going to do it where we're going to have to make sure we're not dividing by 0. And we're going to do a couple things with that. We either can use an if statement to filter out a division by 0, or we can use an exception handling. So we've done a review on exception handling, or an introduction to exception handling early on. Now we get to see it in action. So division will be a little bit more involved in terms of what are we dividing by to make sure we're not dividing by 0. The style we're going to use, we could leave it where the division will be all self-contained, just like addition. So we can pick that style, and I think we'll be fine there. So we'll see you then for the next lesson.